Okay, so today we are going to begin sewing our face mask together, or at least part of it. We are going to start with the middle seam. So you're going to take your two of the same pattern piece and you're going to lay those together, right sides together. And then you'll want to pin the large curve here, as that's where we're going to be sewing. So I have that one done, and then you're going to do the same thing with the smaller area, the smaller pattern piece as well. This one I will be hand sewing. I am also going to be making one that I will be machine sewing, as I know a couple of you have machines at your house, and if you would like to use that, you can. So this one I am going to use a machine to sew. So I'm going to do the same thing, pinning that curved side there, and same thing with this one, pinning the curved side, making sure that our right sides are together when we pin those. Okay, so I've got my machine out here and I am going to start sewing just that middle curved piece to the fabric. I'm just going to do a back stitch, do my normal straight stitch and back stitch at the end to hold my stitch in place. I want to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I'm just going to have that fabric even with the edge of my presser foot as I sew this. And now I'm going to do the same thing with those smaller pieces, the same curved line. I am going to do the 1/4 inch seam allowance again and making sure I back stitch at the beginning and the end. So those of you with sewing machines that choose to use them, that's all you are going to do today, and we will go over the next steps tomorrow. Okay, so now we are going to be hand sewing, and for my hand sew, hand stitch, I have my needle with my thread. I did choose the one that was gonna match, and I knotted my thread already. I am gonna post a tutorial on hand knotting your thread when you are doing hand sewing onto the Google Classroom page. So if you need a refresher, which hopefully you don't at this point, I will have that on there. We are also going to be doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, and I am just going to actually be using this pattern piece to mark it on my page. I should have my wrong sides out, and this here, this dotted line, that is the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just marking it on my pattern piece, and then I can kind of mark it actually right on my piece. Okay, and then I can just kind of keep it the same distance all the way down. Okay, so I've just lightly drawn on a line so I know where I want to keep my stitch line to be about. And we are going to be doing a back stitch just because we want it to really hold in place, and you want to keep your stitches pretty tight together. So what I am going to do here is I am going to come up through both pieces of my fabric right on the end here. Okay, and I am just going to start it like a normal running stitch. So I'm going to go back down, and then I'm going to come right back up, and I'm trying to do this right on my line here that I have drawn. Now here's where the back stitch part comes into play. So I have a space here. I need to go back to where that first stitch came through. So I'm taking my needle and I'm actually sewing in a backwards direction here, going and pulling that down through, and then I'm going to come forward on that line. Okay, let's see this? And then from there I am going to go backwards, so you should have a solid stitch line. I'm going to go back to where that previous stitch ended, and then I'm going to come forward. So I need to keep coming forward, and then once I get on the top here, I'm always going backwards. Once I get that initial stitch started, now I always go back to where that previous stitch ended. Okay, so you should end up with a solid stitching line right on that line that I drew. I'm going to end up with a solid line. I want to keep those stitches rather on the small side, nice and tight together, so that this is a very strong stitch. I'm going to do this on this pattern piece and on my other one today. Once you get both of those completed, you are done for the day, and I'll show you what the next step is tomorrow.